You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
All right, guys, we're back at it again. Here with my buddy Sajin Abraham. How you doing, Saj?
Doing well, man. Doing well. It's a wet Saturday, so it's a great day to sit and film some episodes.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, why not? This is perfect. This worked out better. So my son's soccer games got canceled. I'm like, you know what? Let's just utilize this time, fill some space, get busy, and knock out episode 10 here that we got going. Today's episode, we are talking about a topic that was actually recommended by one of our listeners, Toji Phillip. He was asking us, hey, what is the best way to manage multiple properties? I know some people, you guys probably haven't gotten there yet, but just some tips and tricks from our end. Again, we don't have a ton of properties, but we do have multiples, and we just want to show, hey, what are the best ways to manage multiple properties and go down that path. But hey, Saj, so I know you mentioned to me earlier, you did get your second coronavirus vaccine. How you feeling, man? You got it yesterday, right?
Feeling strong, man. I'm feeling strong. I got it yesterday, like midday, and it's sore, right? Like my arm's sore, but other than that, I'm feeling okay. But I will say, I am feeling a little bit tired. Like I woke up this morning, I'm like, oh, just sore arm, I'm fine. And then as the day's progressing, I'm like, a nap would be good right now. But other than that, I'm fine. So, but people are saying mixed reviews. Oh, I was knocked out for a week. I was knocked out for 24 hours. So we'll see what's up. But so far, so good.
Good. Yeah, same here. I got both of them. Second one, I was just lethargic. But after that day, after my vaccine, it was just like nothing happened.
That's awesome.
I was like, poof, back at it, So
that's how it should be, man. Just feel the pain for a little bit, then move on,
Yep. Go get your vaccine if you feel comfortable doing it, and stay safe and healthy out there. But with that said, we can dive right into this week's episode. Again, we're talking about managing multiple properties. Thanks again, Toji, for giving us that topic. Again, we highly recommend you guys, feed us whatever you want to hear and listen to. It's beneficial to us and to you guys. As a new investor, the question will be, do you recommend managing this thing yourself as a newbie, or will we hire somebody out? What is the best way to start with I guess a property, multiple properties? If you come across your second property, what point, or how do we kind of go about this, Saj? What do you do when it comes to managing these properties or multiple properties?
Right. So, personally, it's all a personal preference, right? It depends on how much time you have, how involved you want to be. All that plays into a factor. So I can't really tell you what is the right or wrong answer because it's different for each person. But I'll tell you what I did, or what I'm comfortable with. I like the idea of doing it myself just to get a feel of what does the process look like? How can I get familiar with the property and things of that nature? Fortunately, I have the flexibility to be able to do some things myself, right? But not everyone has that, right? And so if you were to self-manage your properties, it kind of gives you that opportunity to get more familiar with the property, to get more familiar with the whole process. Like, how do I deal with these tenants? And those are little lessons and potential failures that you're going to miss out on. And I say that in a way of, it's good to have a failure because you can learn quickly, right? And so, how to deal with certain people, it's a people game at the end of the day. And so if you bend that out, you kind of miss that opportunity, but then you also miss the headache too. So there's kind of a balance there. I think if you're a very busy person, like your 9-to-5 job, maybe you should, hire a management company to manage your properties. Personally, I want to wait a little bit until I get a bunch more under my belt, because there is this ability to scale when you have systems in place, right? And so sometimes the property management is your system in place to where they're focusing on the day-to-day grind, making sure the tenants are happy and, there's tenants in the houses and all that stuff. And you could focus on the business where you're growing, you're growing your business, you're scaling, you're getting more properties and you're getting to bigger properties and things of that nature. So it's really a balancing act. To me, it's you have to figure out who you are and what you're able to bring to the table. And then also identify a cutoff point, because if you are trying to scale, if you are trying to grow, I think property management is inevitable. And that doesn't necessarily mean you hire a company to do it. That might mean you hire a personal assistant to say, hey, field all these calls and make sure that my tenants are happy. And so there's many different ways of vending out that work. But for me personally, right now, I have a few properties and so far it's working out well. And it also gives me that opportunity to iron out all the kinks, right? To figure out like, oh, this is not, I don't like how this process works. I want to do it this way. I don't like how the money's coming in through this account. I want to have a dedicated account per. And so sometimes you could skip those steps by hiring a property management, right? They have systems in place where you could just kind of plug and play, but then you miss the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think, if you're a new investor, the first property, I think you should manage yourself. I think it's doable for anybody. Anybody can manage one property on its own.
Sure.
And like you said, you'll highlight, what are the weaknesses, strengths of, and just a learning curve of how to manage that properly and kind of manage that. That way, what it takes. And then if you ever hire out, what you're paying for, the services. And once you start scaling and adding multiple properties, I think it really depends on your life, and it's case by case, right? If you have a full-time 9 to 5 and you're dedicated to that from 9 to 5, you can't field a call for a broken toilet, right? And so that's that. So it kind of you have to kind of weigh, what is your balance of your life looks like. If you don't have a job and this is kind of what your end all be all is going to be, then you'll be able to manage more than one property by itself. But I think that first one, definitely manage it by yourself, that way you know what it takes, and then from there you just got to decide what time and space you have.
I completely agree. Like giving yourself that ability to learn, right? I mean, I know it's kind of intimidating, like, oh, I have to deal with this and that, but like that's how we grow and that's how we expand our business, right? When you deal with the problems that other people don't want to deal with, that's where wealth is built, right? And so I think it's invaluable, at least the first one. Just try to knock it out yourself. And that doesn't mean like you have to do it forever, right? Yeah. Like that might mean 6 months, that might mean a year, but at least you'll have that under your belt and know how this whole thing works, right? How to operate it. So I guess with that, what are some tips and tricks that like you use? Because if I'm not mistaken, like you manage your own properties, right?
Yeah, I manage all of them, 100%.
Yeah, 100%, right? So like, what do you do to manage all that? Like what are some tips that you have?
I'm still learning every day. There's things that I have to clean up, processes. The more you get, and I think the question is, how do you manage multiple properties? Mm-hmm. The biggest thing I think to have multiple properties and to manage them, if you're doing it, self-managing it, is to make sure you have your processes in order, right? Whether it's a spreadsheet that has multiple tabs, that has each, properties information, details on tenants, keeping folder structures properly. Organization is key, right? So I have a Dropbox or Google Drive, and basically have, a folder for each of my properties, right? And they have all the details as far as what the lease agreements are, insurances for the house. That way, if I need to get to any of these things, I can easily get to it at a click of a button. So organization is number one in my book, if you're doing multiple properties. And in this day and age, number two is just going high tech, leveraging technology to make your management life easy. And that means whether using Dropbox, where it's super easy and you can share it, you can access it on your phone. If you need to get to a certain document, if a tenant says, hey, what's the late fees for my property? I can go to, boom, my lease contract for that specific property off my Dropbox, and then boom, I'm there. There's also actually, I was actually looking at, there's some websites out there that actually track and manage tenant, basically HOA fees, rents, everything can be tied all through one basically website that they can log into, create an account, and they have an account, and it'll give them a reminder that says, hey, your rent's due, and I can track it on my end. I can track, all their tickets, meaning if they have issues with their properties, things like that. All those items can be tracked through this one website. So there's actually a ton of technology out there that's actually making management life a lot easier if you're doing it from the self-management perspective. So I think technology and staying organized are two of your biggest things.
Right. No, I totally agree. I guess to have more of a tangible idea of what it looks like to self-manage, I'm just going to share like kind of my process and how it works. So I have a bank account for each property. It's free to open up a checking account, right? And so there's a bank account tied to each property. So when the lease is formed, I put that bank account number and say, hey, deposit whichever way you want to do it. If you want to go to the bank and deposit, if you want to do direct deposit, whatever you want to do, but this is the account that's associated to this property. And so that's set in place. Then just like you, I have a spreadsheet for each property, and a folder in my Google Drive to keep things organized. So the lease agreement, the spreadsheet that tracks all the expenses and all that stuff, it's all in one place. And so just like, I mean, that stuff happens where I'll get a call or a text and say, hey, what's the late fee? I'm going to pay on the 7th today. I could quickly go on my phone. I could go on my phone and just pull up that document and say, hey, oh, it's the X amount of dollars, and yada, 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 and kind of go from there. Like, you want to have that quick ability to answer questions. I also like have vendor lists of people like repair people and handyman, plumbers, electricians, and all that stuff. That's saved in that Google Drive as well, because I want it readily available, because it happens, right? Like, you want to be able to respond to somebody quickly. Like, there's many times where a tenant will call and say, recently, hey, the garage is not shutting.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I know, oh, it's probably a sensor or, something minor, but I'm trying to break myself away from not going myself and doing it and calling the right people to get it done, right? So they call me and say this problem. I go to my list and I say garage repair, call so-and-so. All right, so I text so-and-so and say, hey, do you have time to go out there? They text me immediately back saying, oh, I could be there at 6 p.m. today. I shoot the text back. So everything's kind of flowing really well. But also it gives me the opportunity to say, if I were to hire a personal assistant, they need to have this list of vendors. They need to know which tenant lives in which house. And so I'm trying to build that system to where I could hire someone out eventually, so that way I could scale. But that's generally what I do as far as like self-management.
Yeah, and that's similar to what I said. So it's accessibility to all your information, keeping it organized, and organization is so important. It's ridiculous, right? I'm slowly figuring that out. I mean, there's times where, I've had like flood insurance policies that I'm trying to look up, and I forgot to put those onto my Google Drive. And what am I doing? I'm backtracking, right? I'm calling the insurance company and saying, hey, what's my policy for? When does it expire? And things like that. And so as you go through the process, you'll learn that, hey, these are things that need to be documented properly, or these need to be put in a safe place where you can easily get to it if somebody asks you a question for it, or if it's up for renewal. And for me, same thing. I even put on that spreadsheet, I can go and check every month and say, hey, what tenants are going to be coming up for renewal? That way you can reach out to them, because these are all things that you have to kind of do, which is, follow up with them and say, hey, do you want to renew your contract or do you not? And so that gives you the ability to plan for your future as well for these properties and things like that. So it is a little bit of work. With that said, I guess one of the things that a lot of the viewers would probably like to hear is, Saj, what do you think, is a cutoff, or how do you determine, what is a cutoff on management of number of properties? How many number of properties can you manage, self-manage? At what point does it become a hassle and inefficient? What's your thoughts on that?
Again, this answer is not something that people want to hear, because I think typically they want to say a number, this amount, and then you can do it. Yeah. But again, it turns into personal preference, right? Really so is. I'll be honest, I have 5 right now, and it's manageable. It's very manageable in the sense of like, all right, I know the tenants that are in there. I have people helping me as far as like getting the tenants and all that stuff, but the systems that are in place, like even what you were saying, when is their lease up? So as soon as I get the lease and everything's set in stone, I immediately go to my Google Calendar and say, all right, on this date is the expiration date of this lease. Give me a 5-day heads up so I could reach out to those people and say, hey, do you want to renew or whatever, right? So those little systems that you build in place make it so much easier, right? Knowing which account is tied to each property, those little things make it easy. But I will say this, it is a bottleneck, because I am the bottleneck of this business's growth, right? And so my goal personally is to attain 10. Like, I'm in acquisition mode until I hit 10. Once I get to 10, I'm going to stop and start paying it down, right? So before I get to 10, I need to build a system in place, because I feel like that's going to be the point where I'm like, all right, I need someone else to manage this stuff so I could grow bigger and better, right? Yeah. So my cutoff is actually, it's starting now. Maybe by property 6, I need to start either hiring a PA, or at least building the system to say, hey, here's the book on how to manage our properties. So I could at least pass it on to somebody and say, these are the steps you need to take. And then, everything will be squared away. So me personally, 6 is kind of like the cutoff point. But I know a lot of people that do multiple, like people do tons of property and they do it all themselves, right? So, it's a personal preference. But yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, I know. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, you're 100% right. I don't think there's a hard, fast, set number, that we can give to anybody because everybody's life is different. Some people have
Right.
full-time jobs. They're managing, and we both have full-time jobs. We're managing this, outside of work hours and things like that. And so the thing is that you have to kind of take into effect or is that this is a business, right?
Right.
Make sure you keep that in mind in the back of your mind. Run it as a business, not as, just something that you're just freely doing it to fill time, right? Because if you do that, then that's where your business suffers. Or
Right.
and what we're looking at it is for long-term investment, hold it. And so you want it to run like a well-oiled machine. So that's, I think, that your biggest thing to keep in mind when you're managing multiple properties. So putting the processes in place, getting the accessibility to everything that you need on the drop of a dime, that's all just things that you're going to do to improve your business. So I think that's ultimately the big thing to take away from it. Manage it properly. Don't give it any less time than you would for anything else. And I think you'll find your cutoff point naturally, and then from there you just figure out, hey, I want to outsource this to a management company and let them handle it, and I'm willing to pay for it, because at that point you're scaling anyway. So if you
Right.
if you have if you have tons of properties and you're kind of looking at long term, and hey, I want to hand that off, you already have the processes in place. You just pick it up like you said and just hand that straight to them, and they have the processes and what to do and how to manage
Right.
it.
No, I 100% agree. And you kind of like drilled the point down, but organization is everything. Like if you could be organized, you could really handle anything that comes your way,
Yeah.
because those systems are based off of organization, right? Like when you know where the money's coming in, where you know who are the contacts to reach out to if a problem happens, or if a question comes up, you know exactly where to go to get that lease agreement to know, hey, how do I answer this question? Like organization is probably the most important thing when it comes to managing multiple properties.
Yeah, and I think my wife will laugh at me for saying that because she thinks I'm the most disorganized person, which I think I am. But this has kind of helped me to channel my
Right.
organizational skills. I mean, it really does. I'm not saying I'm perfect at all. I'm telling you, literally, this happened to me like probably 2 weeks ago. So my flood insurance policies are coming up to expire, right? So
Sure.
I'm trying to gear up for hurricane season here down in Texas. So
Yeah.
um, and so I had to like figure out, hey, what was my policy and when does it expire? And I'm
Yeah.
just running around like a man. So I had to
Yeah.
so I had to say, hey, I need to get this thing on the books, put it in the documentation in the folders that I need to put it in so I can easily get to it. So I'm not, I probably literally spent an hour just calling people and figuring out, hey,
Right.
what do I have a policy? What's going on?
Yeah.
So that's just a pure example of, again, making it easy on your life, streamlining things, and then you can get through the multiple properties. But I definitely, say just start with one and
Yeah.
and learn those things.
Yeah. No, I think it's invaluable. Like take those hits when you're only at one. If you start accumulating like a ton of them, you still didn't build your systems, it's going to be trouble, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But it's also easy to get into the slump of, it's only one. So I can kind of slack and call and manage one easily, right? But
yeah.
when you when
Yeah.
you when you get, a few of them under you, then you're calling for different properties and trying to manage multiple properties. It's easy to get into that slump of, yeah, I'll get by it next time. But if you start early, if in your management career and kind of figure those processes out, it'll make it so easier later on. And it just basically builds a template for your next one. That's the other
Exactly.
thing too. So if you have a template for your first property, let's say you get your second one, you already know what folders to build, how to kind of build. It's just a cookie cutter step, and makes it so much easier in your life.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Like it's just a rinse and repeat. Again, you have to perfect it, but it doesn't even have to be perfect as you go. Because as you keep going,
we'll
property
tweak it.
three, oh, I tweaked it this way, and property four,
Yep.
I tweaked it that way. But everything's getting better as time progresses, right? So,
It's a
yeah,
well-oiled machine. You just got to,
that's right.
put oil in that wheel and just keep letting it roll.
That's right. That's right.
So that's basically it. I don't think there's a hard, fast, set number on the number of properties to manage. It's all going to determine on you, but I think we drove home the point of just making sure you just take care of it as a business, get those processes in place, and leverage technology. This day and
Yeah.
age, we're not using paper for anything. Like everything is literally not filed away. I mean, you have access to it. You have a computer walking around with it. So
Right.
use it.
Right.
There's so much technology out there. It's ridiculous. It's an awesome thing to leverage.
Yeah. I totally agree. And also, like, if you're still collecting rent, like you're going door to door and collecting rent. Like,
Yeah, those days are gone.
yeah, why do that? Because it's
Yeah.
a danger to you, it's a hassle to you, all that stuff. Like the tenants could easily go to a bank or just direct deposit from their account and direct deposit to your account.
Venmo, you
Yeah.
know?
The Cash App. I mean, there's so many different apps now. Like
Yeah.
you could do so many Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, I guess. I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things that you could
Yep.
use. And it's safer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
safer. You don't want to be walking around with a bunch of money, you know, like, and then you have to go to the bank and do all that stuff. Like, so I totally agree. Like leveraging technology is key.
What's funny is
Organization is the top dog, and then leveraging technology would be second.
Yep. And what's funny is I still get excuses about, you know, hey, my check didn't cash, or, you know, I'm like, what? It's direct deposit.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean it didn't cash? Yeah.
But no, so yeah, that's the episode for this week. Hope you guys found it beneficial. You know, stay on that hustle. It's super easy. We're giving you tips to make your life easier. Again, these are things that we've went through. Hopefully you find this helpful. If you have any questions about any of the apps that we use, things like that, feel free to comment and let us know. Saj?
Yeah, no, I think we got it, man. Thanks for watching. We always appreciate it. We'd love to hear your comments and just to have a conversation. Like, we want to make this a conversation. So please comment, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching this on. Please let us know what you think.
Yes, sir. Take care, guys. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin. Be sure to tune in next time.